You are listening to the Network Marketing Mindset Podcast with Deb Erickson, episode number 7, an interview with another A-teamer, Haley Ragsdale.
Welcome to the Network Marketing Mindset Podcast, where you'll learn how to transform your mindset and achieve massive success in your network marketing business. Here's your host, business mindset coach, Deb Erickson.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Deb Erickson. I'm so glad you're here with our Network Marketing Mindset Podcast for women. And today I'm going to be joined by another A-teamer. And you know that I've talked to you before about my A-teamer. People always say, if you started all over again, who would you recruit? Well, my next guest is someone I would recruit. This is a woman who is at the top of her company. In fact, I asked her to give me some of her awards and recognitions. She's been in the industry for 5 years. I'm going to let her tell you the story, but she is a Black status presenter. She's at the top. She's a Wall of Influence earner. She was one of the early ones to earn that. She's won trips. She speaks at the corporate events, right, at convention. She has over 665,000 people on her team. That'll give you a frame of reference. And her organization stretches through 7 countries. But above all of that, Haley is a woman of passion. She's a woman of integrity. She's a woman that, she's going to teach you so much today. So I want you to meet Haley Ragsdale. And Haley, I'm going to bring you full screen so they can kind of see you as well by me.
Great.
But welcome to the show, Haley. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm so excited to share.
Good. So Haley, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get into network marketing? What helped you make the decision? Just some of the big issues along the way. Just tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so I have kind of what I think is an interesting story. Hopefully you think it's a little bit interesting too. But I just wanted to help a friend back in the day. She was hosting an online party and I bought something. And of course I loved the product and I signed up just to get the consumer discount. And I'll never forget this, it's super important. So that was in February of 2013. In March of 2013, my husband and I went to visit our accountant to prepare our taxes for 2012. And prior to 2012, we had a lot of taxable deductions. We had rental properties and things like that. Well, in 2012, we didn't have anything. And we walked away having to write a really big check, cry me a river, right? I know it's hard to get sympathy, people that have high incomes, when we have to pay those level of taxes. But my husband and I were both multiple 6-figure earners in our corporate jobs. And we had a pretty hefty tax bill. So we get in the car on the way home from the accountant and we were like, oh man, that smarts. And he's like, what are we going to do? For us, it didn't make sense based on our goals to lay down huge chunks of money to capture additional real estate just to get a tax benefit. So I told my husband, I said, well, I've got this little home-based side business going on. I could try to focus on that. And he's like, well, yeah, because there's a lot of taxable benefits depending on the country and your tax situation that you can benefit from by having a home-based business. And so I was like, all right, what about this? What if I work it hardcore for 6 months, pour myself into it? Let's see what happens. I said, now this means you're going to have to be eating a lot of crock pot meals. You're going to be picking up slack at home. If I'm going to do this, because remember, I worked a full-time plus, a 60-hour plus a week corporate job that had me traveling more than 75,000 airline miles a year. I was a super, super busy corporate chick. And so I needed help, right? We had a household and a family. And so he's like, I'm in. So that's what I did. And I started pouring myself into the business. And probably the next level of that really shifted for me probably about 3 or 4 months in. We had another conversation, my husband and I, about finances. And here's kind of an interesting thing. My husband is 16 years older than I am. And maybe there's some viewers or listeners here that can kind of relate to this. And so when we've always planned our retirement based on his age, but we weren't, and we'll be celebrating our 19th wedding anniversary this year, but we weren't really where we thought we wanted to be or should be. And the thought of him retiring soon, he's 61 now, him retiring, this was a few years ago, but me still having to go to work for 20 more years, like with 2 weeks or 3 weeks of vacation a year.
Yeah.
Traffic and cubicle and meetings and travel. And then my husband is retired. And so then 20 years later, I'm finally 60-ish, retired, and he's 80.
Yeah.
Like, what's that look like? It was not what we wanted for our life. And so we decided to do some big things. And then that is when we really stepped it up. And so that's kind of where we are now, you know?
Wow. You know, it's such a great story because, you know, people's reasons for coming into this industry are so different and so varied. But it's really incredible to see someone who comes from highly successful corporate America, right? Giving that up, putting that on hold, and then jumping into this. So I'm excited about where our conversation is going to go today.
Yes, I love it.
I know. So, so you spent 6 months and you said you went hardcore. What does that look like?
So for me, I really took advantage of the time that I did have. And so that was in the air, on the airplane a lot. I was able to really craft, build relationships, you know, build plans. And I worked at night a lot. I worked, you know, I kind of did, maybe you've heard the 8 to 5, 5 to 8 to 5 scenario where you get up early and you work from 5 to 8, and then you work, or you have your life from 8 to 5. And then from 5 to 8, you are family focused, and then from 8 to 5, you're working again, right? And so I really kind of embraced that. That was something that the co-founder of our company, he shared that he did early on when he was developing software. He had his day job, he had family time from 5 to 8, and he basically worked from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Of course, you're sleeping in there, but you know, that 8 to 5 window is when he really built his business. And it's kind of one of the beautiful things about our profession as well, is that there's so much to be gained in other countries, and my company specifically is very cross-country friendly. And so what I found was, no matter what time of the day or night I chose to work or able to work or awake, I could network and build in any time zone because there's always somebody awake somewhere. And so that's really what I tried to focus on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, so you didn't quit your job right away. You were working.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I actually coach my team. You know, you get a couple of really nice paychecks, and I'm very money focused. I'm very financially driven. Fiscal intelligence or awareness for women, especially, is one of my core mission statement, one of my core platforms. And so I actually caution and coach against ending your job too soon. You know, that scares me. People get a paycheck and they want to quit, and then, you know, they haven't built that foundational book of business. And I can share with you that kind of happened to me, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But leaving your situation too soon can be a mistake, in my opinion, for your business.
Yeah, boy, do I agree with that. And you're saying it from a financial, right? That you have to have the base that kind of provides that month in and month out. I always say it also from a mindset perspective, is that the minute you shift into, now I'm going to do this full time, different challenges come up in your mindset, different doubts, different fears, different things show up. And people don't realize that, you know, just showing up and being at home for 8 hours during the middle of the day doesn't mean you're going to be effective. You know,
you are so right. And I'll tell you, so we retired my husband first.
Yeah.
And then I retired a year later.
Yeah.
And I actually still struggle with this. And you and I have talked about this privately in some of my platinum coaching sessions, but I felt more productive when I had my full-time job and I was focused on working my business in those moments of time, those pockets of time. When I came home and I could work my business full time, I kind of wandered around in a little bit of a circle for a while, kind of like, what do I do now? Right? I could do anything. What the heck do I do now? And I still struggle with that a little bit, to be honest. And so it takes another level of discipline. So I really feel strongly you have to decide, you know, are you a disciplined enough person? And maybe you would grow faster, stronger, bigger, earn more if you kept your current situation and continued on this highly motivated path that you're on, working your business into your current financial situation. And I know you can propel yourself much faster meeting your financial goals by having both job opportunities. And so, yeah, I talk about that a lot with the team members that I coach. I think it's a topic we should talk a little bit more about another time because it comes up all the time.
I agree. I agree, because you know what, and I'll bring it from the other side, so then you can comment on this. So many people come to me and they say, well, I can't do this business because I work full time, or I have 2 jobs, or I have this, or I don't have any times. And what they're doing from a mindset perspective is they're coming from lack, right?
Yes.
And they're looking at what they don't have. And so what they're doing is they are kind of dreaming about magically, if I didn't have a job, then I could do it. And I agree with you that there's something, you've heard the old saying that a job always expands to fill the time that you have for it. And man, is that true. So if you have, like you said, if you have 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night that you dedicate, it's shocking how much you can get done in those time frames than if you had all 8 hours. And like you're saying, you're kind of wandering in circles.
So true. And don't you agree it's true too? It's very similar to your income. We find a way to manage and live on the income that we are generating. Whether, let's say we are earning $28,000 a year. What I have found with my financial coaching that I offer is families that live on $28,000 a year and now maybe are earning 80 or 60 or 80 or more, they still don't have any money, right? How did you not have money at 30 grand a year and you still don't have money at 80 grand a year because you live within your means, whatever that is. And it's the same with time.
Yeah.
It's the same with time.
Yeah. So what's actually happening there is you have a mindset. So if your mindset is there's not enough, or we spend it all, it doesn't matter how much you make, you still have that mindset. You spend it all, right? So absolutely. So what do you think changed for you when you focused and you started going full time? There was a shift. You said there were some things you kind of bumped up against. So tell me a little bit about how did it change? What are the things that you began to do differently?
When I went full time with my home-based business, I think probably some of the key things that changed were really that I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I've been doing all the things. I was very successful, thanks in large part to the women I had and men that I attracted into my business that were working their business, of course. It's not me. I'm not an island, right? I can't do it alone. But I was so super focused because I only had little pockets of time. And when I found myself in my beautiful home office that I had built for myself, and now I had all this time freedom because I didn't have my corporate job, what shifted for me was a little bit, I think, at the beginning was, like I said, what the heck, what do I do first? What do I do next? What do I do now? And it really became super important that, you offer your followers that Tuesday task list. And tools like that became critical to me staying in my lane and staying on track. And I think that that's probably what shifted for me was once I embraced the need for a change, because I had changed and my situation had changed. We always need to evolve, I think.
Right.
And so recognizing that, okay, things are different now. Maybe you have a child that's in college now, or a spouse that lost a job, or you're a parent that has something's changed in your life. I think that you have to be fluid, recognizing that something needs to happen different for you to continue to grow and build and meet your goals. And so for me, that's really what it was. I found that I needed a task list to stay on task because I wander super, super easy. It's very easy to get distracted. And programs like your coaching, I Can Coach program that really helped me identify who to work with, that was super, super beneficial for me because identifying where to spend my time. Because ultimately, we all want that time freedom that is promised to us by building a home-based business, right? This beautiful time freedom situation that awaits us. If only we do work hard in the beginning for no money. Someday we'll have all this money and we'll have all this beach time. And it's there. It's absolutely there. But if you have too much of it, I think that that's one of the things that can derail a lot of professionals. We have to stay engaged, stay on track, and make sure that things are good.
Right. Something you said that I was just talking to another woman was the fact that you don't really know what you're doing. That she said the same thing. She's like, here we are sitting at the top, of the truth is we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
And That is such a fascinating thing to hear from somebody who is so incredibly successful. You came from a corporate job. You were obviously incredibly successful there. You throw yourself into this. How is it even possible for you to say, I really didn't know what I was doing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that, and another thing you and I have worked on are feelings of worthiness, right? But I have personally a lot of worthiness issues. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks into my senior year of high school. I did graduate with my daughter on my hip, barely. I never went to college. I joke I've raised 2 children and 2 husbands. I, was on public, like all those things. Like I do have this kind of, woe is me sob story that has kind of held me back from these feelings of worthiness. I've always worked extra hard to prove myself, right? I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be one of those people, but then and although I am not, I still feel like I'm being judged, which is ridiculous because those are things that happened 30 years ago, right? So I think that for me, worthiness for sure, but also I think that the reason sometimes I feel like, how the heck did this happen, is because so much in this profession of one's success comes from the abilities, capabilities, and dedication of those on their team and not of your personal actions. So I have every high-level performer, all the women on my company's wall of influence, with a few exceptions, I think there's 2 or 3 that might be an exception, are somewhere in my company, in my personal downline, right? So I would love to be able to say that that's because of me, but the reality is it's because I introduced the opportunity to the person and people that sponsored them, which then started that success chain. But the reality is, I think that I love seeing them on stage and they're just so inspirational. But I know in my mind, how can I take credit for any of that? So when you start feeling, for me, and I'm just speaking for myself, I don't know how others might feel, but for me, I feel like my success comes from their drive and passion and vision for their own business. And so when I separate myself from that, and I'm looking at my own personal book of business that Haley Ragsdale is responsible for, that maybe it isn't worthy of all the recognition that I receive.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I can see how you feel that. And then I have to be the one that comes back and reminds you, right? How extraordinary your vision, your passion, your inspiration was, that opened the doors for so many other women. Because, here's the truth, Haley, you made a decision and you jumped in, and the result is what you see, right? The result that you want to sometimes give others credit for, it started with you. It started with your vision, your passion, your commitment. So I want to come back to that for a second, because I do want to honor that. And I know you're humble, and I know you love to, you love to give credit where all the credit is due, and that's appropriate. But let's come back to you for a second. What do you think are the most important personal assets or attributes or changes or breakthroughs? I mean, what happened with you personally, right, that helped to create this chain of events that launched so many careers in Unique? I mean, it is just an unbelievable number of extraordinary, like you said, women that are on the wall of influence, that chain started with you. So tell me what do you think is at the core of that for you?
Probably just a raw belief that it's possible before the paychecks came. And you have to remember, I was one of the first women, and my company is a new company. I know we like to keep these things somewhat generic, but my company at the time, I was a founding presenter of a pretty new company. And so people weren't earning paychecks when, now somebody joining our company today can see all this abundance that has come, but then there was none, but I believed it. And I didn't have any previous network marketing. I mean, I was familiar and had supported different friends by being a customer, but I didn't know anyone personally that was bringing home a paycheck that I could look at and say, oh, I could leave my multiple 6-figure corporate gig someday and do this full time. no one I knew in my life, but I believed it.
Okay, so wait, we got to go deeper on this because this is big.
Okay.
So you're like the fifth or sixth person that I've been interviewing recently that has said this, that I believed it from the beginning. So what would make you believe it when there's no evidence? Because I mean, this is basically faith, right? We're talking about when you believe something deeply, there's no evidence that we would use to convince your logical mind. What is it, Haley? What is it that
You're right. You're so right. Like if I was to present a case in a court of law, I would have no hard evidence, right? It would be. So I think it comes maybe, and I'm just like, these are really, really great questions. And so I'm kind of having to go with my first instinct. And I think it maybe is two things. One is the belief in myself.
Yes.
That I have done some heavy, important things. I had overcome a lot of things. I had started as a secretary making minimum wage in my job and worked my way up in a male-dominated, wage discriminated environment to being a top performer in my company without a college education in a role that requires a college education. I was able to, I had done some pretty important, I had accomplished some pretty important things. I knew I could do whatever. I knew that I could do whatever. So I had that belief in myself that if it could be done, it could be done by me. If it had ever been done ever by anyone, it could then also be done by me. And then the second part of that belief system, I think, is I did have something that not a lot of people have. And I think that that is the true connection and belief in the co-founders of my company and where they were headed. So the company itself, I believed in it. I believed in every person that has their hands in that company as a human, as a business person. So I had that belief in the company and the belief in the product line where it was going. And remember, we did not even have products when I started. And so it is a leap of faith. It is a leap of faith. But if we aren't willing to leap on ourselves first, what are we, I was unwilling to sit back and wait for something to happen for me or to me. I wanted to go and get it myself. And so that's what I did. And so I think that having the faith in myself combined with the true belief in this company and the vision and the owners and where it was going and what I could almost see the future, if that makes sense, because I believed. And I know that people walk in faith all the time. They walk in their religious faith. They walk in their relationship faith. They walk in faith all the time. And what I find really interesting is they often won't walk in faith in themselves, what they're able to do, or in the company that they have decided to partner with, which is kind of interesting.
What I love about this story is, there wasn't proof, there wasn't history. And so this truly the faith and the belief that you have, what you're talking about here, it is something so core. But I want to back the story up a minute because you said something else. You started out as a secretary, uneducated really, as far as having a degree that was required for the job you were moving into. So what is it that caused you to believe enough in yourself to overcome those things? I'm trying to get into the heart and soul.
Okay. So, now that you're saying it, phrasing it like that, a couple things I can see. I can see that I was in fact being validated in my faith of myself and my ability by others. And that maybe is what did it. And let me give you two examples. One, in my corporate job, I had a boss who sat on the front porch of my office when my ex-husband was being transferred to another city. And I didn't want to lose this sweet secretary gig that I had because I knew that it wasn't going to be this sweet when I moved. I wasn't probably going to be able to find a job, right? And he said, no, listen, I will create a position for you in our Anchorage office. And we sat, and he said, because I see something in you. Like, I know that you are worth that. And so he did. That brought me to that next level. And I'm like, oh, wow, this man is going to create a job for me because he has this faith in my ability and believes me. And that made me want to work harder and do more for him, right? Well, so now fast forward to my profession today with this direct selling company. I was validated in the faith I was putting out every day when I would get messages from other women that would get paid. Our company pays our presenters immediately after they sell something. And so I would get a message from a woman that didn't have money for Pampers and went out and hustled. And now she had $30 immediately available in her bank account. And she somehow credited me for that. Right. And I would show my husband these little things, or I would get a $7 deposit into my account or a $30 deposit into my account. And so I was constantly getting those validations. That's one of the beautiful things about this business, is when you can change someone's life from an opportunity standpoint, but also from a product standpoint. So I would have customers coming to me saying, oh my gosh, I love the way this product makes me feel. I feel so beautiful or confident or whatever, right? And so I am fueled by that feedback. I'm fueled by those validations. And so those just brought me, okay, I'm willing to stay up now till 3:00 in the morning to get the next one, to help the next one.
Right. So that means, this feels like we're doing a coaching session.
It does. I just got a free coaching session from Deb Erickson.
But what you're saying is that means it was feeding that part of you, right? That was longing to know that you could make a difference. You were longing to know that you were significant, that you were important, that you could make it, you can see what I'm saying? There's a part of you that wanted that. And you're saying this industry, this company, this process really fed that in you and validated who you were and lifted you up, really. Yeah.
I guess I didn't really know that until this very second.
Yeah. It's powerful.
But yes.
Yeah.
No, super powerful, because you're right. Because I think that my life, I came from a beautiful, supportive, nurturing family. My family is incredible, but there were a lot of moments in my life when all I had was the 4 members of my family. And I remember holding my baby girl at 17 years old, telling her everything's going to be okay, like so many, struggling young mothers do. And I can see now with you sharing it in that way that, yeah, I long for that, and I seek that I am impactful.
Yeah.
And, well, now I might cry, but making a difference, in someone else's life.
You said earlier that you were driven by money, but what I'm seeing, just reading your body language in your eyes right now, that this is equally, if not more important, is the drive to make a difference and transform a life and see your role in that journey. So that is huge, Haley. That is a huge gift to humanity you bring to the world.
Thank you, Deb. I think when you asked earlier, what's the shift been? That's probably been one of the most significant shifts. Yeah. I think I was super money motivated in the beginning, and I've gone from making $1 to making a difference. And that's easy for us in this financial position at the top of the company to say. But what I hope that viewers and listeners hear is that I think it's okay to be money motivated in the beginning when you need that. Yeah. And that on the other side of that is when you really are going to be able to fill your cup by making a difference. Yeah. And it's right there. And it's just one of the beautiful side effects, bonuses of the profession.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. All right. So I do have some questions that I'm supposed to be asking. So let's, I love the journey stuff. I love the transformation stuff. Let me ask you, your own success, right? What do you think is your secret sauce? I mean, what is it that made Haley successful above all others? What is that?
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a hard nut to crack, exactly, because we're all so individual. And when you line up all the top performers in my company on stage side by side, we do not have the same skill sets, right? So, but for me, I think that belief that everyone can, because I did. And if I can, you can, kind of that, well, if I can do it, you can do it, which I know is thrown out a lot, but I believe that. I actually believe that, if I can, you also can. And so that, I think I have this love them and lead them philosophy. I actually have the hashtag love them and lead them, where I think it's a struggle, it's a blessing and a curse that I love people. My husband and I joke, I walk into a room, everyone's my best friend until you prove to me why you shouldn't be. He walks into the room, he likes no one until you prove to him that you're worthy of his connection. And so I love everyone. I do. I love everyone. And I think that has served me well from offering the opportunity and from serving other people and my ability to lead other people and help them grow is because I love connecting in a coaching call with them and learning what their why is and what motivates them and what they need, and then coming up with a plan for that. And so I think that maybe those two things.
Right. That's beautiful. What do you think is the most important thing that somebody new coming into the industry, no matter what company, they join, what advice would you give them is like, this is the most critical thing you got to do. You got to know this, you got to do this, what is it from your perspective?
I can easily answer that because I failed here. And that is kind of stay in your own lane. You will earn success in this profession. And then you could fall into leadership mode, which is what I did. Suddenly you feel like, oh, I have to open a private training group and I have to create this content and I have to be there for every single person. When the reality, what you need to be doing is staying in your lane, staying head down, focused on your own business. I failed to build my business. My compensation plan is set up where the wider you build, the more it benefits you. As soon as I had a few rock stars, I don't know if it was because I wanted to be attached to their success, or I can't really explain what happened, but as soon as I had a little bit of business going on, I turned it into like, oh, I had to be a leader all of a sudden. And I feel like looking back, I could have still offered that support to my team, but stayed focused. I stopped sponsoring, Deb. I stopped partying. The success formula for my company is book, sell, sponsor. I stopped doing all of that. And I thought that by creating this flyer and hosting this conference call and doing this thing and posting this, that this is what was going to build my business. Right. And it isn't. Let your leaders lead. Keep building. Whatever you think the frontline book of business you need is to be successful and to have beach time and time freedom, you need to triple that. And I think that's probably that's definitely what I coach now.
Right.
You do not have to lead others. You need to lead your home. Your family comes first. Your goals come first. Your focus has to stay the same. There's plenty of content out there for others, and they are business builders, and it's up to them to build their business. It's just up to you to hold their hand when they need it, but you can't be all things to all people. And I fell into that. I did.
One of the things I see sometimes is that I agree. People do that all the time. And I always kind of wonder, why do we do that? And I'm wondering if there's some part of us that feels like it's safer, right? Yeah. To jump over here now and just manage this little group than it is to keep pushing our edge and facing our fear and stretching ourselves to do that side of the equation. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. It's the hard stuff, right? I can come to work and fire off messages and celebrate wins and, answer some questions, and I feel productive. And then you go and you become successful, and I get to be like, yeah, that is my girl up there. Isn't she amazing? And she's my friend. And so you feel like you're still being productive, but you aren't really income producing behavior. You're not generating income producing activity. And so I think that's absolutely true. It's the path of least resistance. I still feel like I'm working and I'm still feeling successful and like I'm creating and I'm helping. But the reality is I'm not building my business. It's just easier. It's just easier to support you than it is to sponsor.
So let me ask you, what is your greatest fear in the business? What's the thing that pushes you the most?
So now my husband is retired, and I do want to preface this by saying that we did dig the well before we were thirsty, right? We stayed out of debt. We did all the right things. We had investments. We had real estate. We've done some things. But I do feel pressure being the only income earner right now. And one of my dearest girlfriends, she's a top performing real estate agent in my area, and her husband really wants to retire. And on paper, there's no reason they couldn't, but it was just fascinating to me that she felt the same way. She said, I don't know if I can emotionally handle the feeling of being the sole income earner. And even though, God forbid, something happened and my entire book of business went away, my husband and I would be okay financially. We'd have to make some changes, but we would be okay financially. it's in the back of my mind. Like, what if it goes away? What if I fail somehow? What if I don't show up in some way? And that propels me every day in a good way, but it also is a little bit of a heavy chain around my ankle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When I started studying neuroscience, and, neuroscience focuses a lot on the impacts of fear. Basically, one of the core understandings is fear will always show up. So it's just dressed differently, right? So in the early days, it's fear of failing and not getting there. And then in the later days, it's fear of losing the thing I created,
Yes.
But the truth is, fear shows up for every single human being in some way, dressed up some way. So you must have devised or found ways to deal with the fear as it shows up. So can you share what that was or what that is?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, if I'm being honest, if I totally have squashed those fears. I think that I do still feel that fear every day of losing the life. Like I said, we would be just fine. We would be financially okay. We would just have to change our lifestyle. And I am not really interested in changing my lifestyle right now. So that still, like, I want to keep living this lifestyle. So I want to keep building toward that. But I think I do still, Deb, carry the fear around me. And it probably does kind of stymie me in some of my goals, in meeting some of my goals. And because even though I am recognized as at the top of the company, I actually don't make rank every month. And that's something else I think is really important for viewers and listeners to understand is you might have this perception that everyone at the top of the company is making bank and hitting it every single month, when the reality is that is not true. It's very common when you promote a rank to not hit it maybe for a month or two. You're still building that business and it's still getting stronger and stronger. It is also common when you hit the top of a company 2 years later, still be trying to build your foundation to keep you there. And I'm one of those women that struggle to keep myself at that top level. And so I think that maybe some of that fear is still kind of there for me. But how I work through it on a day-to-day basis, I think, is knowing and believing and being rooted in the truth. And the truth is, and I'm not just saying this, I would live with my husband in a cabin with no electricity or sewer and be happy and in love and live a simple life if I had to. and it would be okay. And we have what we need to be healthy and happy and survive. And so as long as I'm nurturing those family relationships and keeping myself real with where I'm at, I'm okay with that. Like, it's peaceful for me, and it allows me to keep working at the level that I know that I need to work to meet my financial goals.
So it kind of feels like what you've done to deal with fear. Everybody deals with it differently, right? Some people lean into it. Some people run away from it. Some people hide. And you are leaning in for sure, right? You're that energy that says, I will find a relationship with fear. And it sounds like what you've done is you've kind of just made peace that, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be happy, healthy. You've got it covered. You've got that core belief. So you don't let it like strangle you. You don't let it shut things off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think also in this profession, when you get to these higher levels in companies, there's this pseudo celebrity status that kind of comes with it. And I've always been really, really, I'm proud of myself for what I'm about to share. I love being on stage. I love it. But it does not define me. I don't need to be a celebrity. I don't need to be number one. I don't need to be in the spotlight. And in fact, this year at our company convention, I actually stepped down to allow some others to shine. And I don't mean that like, oh, look how awesome I am. But I think that it's part of my truth is what I love and worship and cherish is in these four walls of this house. And if I can add value to someone's life, I am so thrilled by that. But I don't need to be a star. I don't need to be a celebrity. And I think that the men and women in our profession, especially that do crave that and are fueled by that, when and if that was to ever go away, that's when things just unravel for them, right? Emotionally, financially, from a business point, from all aspects of the relationships, everything. And so I've always worked really hard to make sure that I say yes to the events that serve me and why they serve me. And I'm okay saying no. I don't need to be at every single event on every single stage. Although I'm offered, I decline often. And that's good. I think for me, it's good for me,
right,
to keep it all in check.
Good. All right. I want to cover a couple more things for our listeners. What do you know now that you wish you had known then? So in other words, if somebody's just getting started, they're looking at you and saying, I want what Hayley has. What do you wish you had known and or done in the early days that might have made, some of that early time a little bit better, or it's kind of your advice to somebody getting started right now?
Good question. I think that it kind of goes back to two things. One, staying in your lane, head down, stay focused. I would probably tell that woman or man coming into the business that if you're interested in building a business, that success is going to come. And when it does, we need to have another conversation to remind ourselves that we are staying focused to meet whatever goal it is that you want to meet, because it's easy to get sidetracked. Super easy to get sidetracked in this profession. And so it's super important to stay focused. The other thing is, I have really changed how I approach the opportunity with people, and I think it's been helpful. So in the past, I would, sign up, it's $100, but you get all this stuff for $100. And what I found was that brought a lot of kidnappers to the business, that created a lot of busy work, but also created a lot of negative feelings when I expected them to be an incredible business partner, and they ended up being a hobbyist or under the witness protection program. You never see them again, as you say. And so what I started doing now is, instead of looking at it like, it's just $100. If it doesn't work out, it's like, no big deal. I have all this makeup. Now I'm like, no, oh my goodness, I can get into a multi-million-dollar business. So to put this in perspective, my team last year did, and I don't have the number handy, but it was, I believe, about $320 million in sales in 2017. Wow. $320 million in 12 countries in 2017. So instead of looking at like, it's $100, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I am like, no, you are sitting on a potential multi-million-dollar business, and it only costs you $100 to get started. And I think that's that mindset shift that I would encourage people to look at their business for what it is, and not give it an excuse or an out to fail from the beginning.
Well, that energy always comes from kind of that desperation energy, or that lack mentality, right? Where it's like, if I could just get them to spend $100, and the truth is, if you could just barely convince them to spend $100, that's who you have. You have something. Yes. So people are showing you who they are, right? So, what do you think the greatest, if I could be so bold to say, what's the most important lesson you've learned from the classes you took from ICANN Institute or from working with me? Give people just one thing that you go, wow, this is something that was really critical that I got from you.
I know exactly what it is. You and I had a coaching call. So I guess I would, and you did not ask me to promote you. So I want to make that clear. I'm choosing to do this because it was life-changing for me. But we had a coaching call last year, and when we were talking about all my goals, something that kept coming up for me was my health, my wellness, my physical being, right? I was very heavy, and that's been something that I've always let go. And so you actually said, we keep talking about this health thing, like, let's talk about that some more. And you told me that, and I'm paraphrasing because you were much nicer, but you basically said, you're allowing yourself to be super successful in only 2 out of 4 areas. So as long as you're allowed to be rich and have an amazing husband and live in a beautiful home and go on vacation all the time, as long as you're fat. You're allowed to be super, super successful as long as you're unhealthy, because then that makes you normal, or that's how you're normalizing it. And what I found was like, holy cow, and it goes back to the worthiness that you and I talked about. And I was doing that. I was not allowing myself to be successful in all the areas that were important to me, health being one of them. I always put it on the back burner. And I did. I felt like as long as I was unhealthy and fat and unhealthy, that you would still like me, that it was okay if I was wealthy and had all these beautiful things happening in my life, as long as I was not also thin, healthy, attractive, or whatever. And so I lost 55 pounds over the last year after that coaching session. That was really a catapult for me, that coaching session. And what is interesting that has happened is now when I am working or talking with women in my community, especially people that I want to sponsor, what I notice is the truth is also often showing itself the opposite way. So for example, I have women that are fiercely athletically fanatic, marathons, triathlons, like they pour themselves into their health and well-being, and their finances are a mess. They're a mess because they're allowing themselves to be super, super human in this area, but not in this area. And so how can we, as women especially, embrace that we are worthy to have all those things like you told me I was. I am allowed to be successful. I'm allowed to have a healthy, beautiful marriage and also be healthy. Like I'm allowed all those things.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was the biggest thing, hands down. Light bulb moment, blew my mind, changed my life, changed everything about me physically, and also changed the message I hope I'm delivering to the women that I personally am coaching, that you are worthy, you are allowed, and you're allowed to be super successful and also be responsible with your finances. You're allowed to be super successful and healthy and feel uplifted and beautiful, and you're allowed to be super successful, healthy, and have a great relationship. You're allowed all those things.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's huge.
Oh, I could talk to you all day, but
I know, we could. We need our own show, Deb.
We are almost out of time. But let me ask you this. There's so many women who try to get into the business. They get started and then they are derailed by the negative judgments about network marketing, and it's a pyramid scheme and you don't have what it takes, all that stuff. So what would you say to them? Because here you sit, right? A woman who's spent 4 years, really diving in and changing your life in every way possible. What would you say to someone who's really struggling with that decision, that internal energy of, is this the answer for me and can I do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of tough because I think everybody's so individual in where they're at. But I would say, I guess, that what you believe is true. So stop believing what you believe if it's wrong. We have all these false truths, and these are false truths about this profession. And the reality is you can. I can't do it for you, though. You have to do it. And so I would argue that you have to do whatever it takes to break through some of those negative mindset. I mean, those are all things holding you back, and only you can do that.
Yeah.
I can send you a tool. I can give you some guidance. I can give you a different perspective, but you have to unbury that garbage and burn it because no one else can do it for you. And until you're willing to do that, until you're willing to stop making those excuses, because that's what it is. It's just excuses because you're sitting here seeing me, hearing me, and you've just heard my story. So you know that it's possible. It's you that is making it impossible for yourself. So I guess maybe a little bit of tough love in that area is needed. Just kind of a kick in the butt, stop. You just have to stop, but you have to decide. Nobody can do it for you.
I just want to officially say for all my viewers and for women everywhere, you are extraordinary. Oh. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for having the courage to move past, early bumps in the road in your life and believing in yourself and upping your game and all the things you did. I just want to say how much I appreciate, how much I admire the courage that it takes to keep moving and keep growing and keep expanding and keep making a difference. And you are an extraordinary gift. And I thank you for that.
Deb, thank you so much for all of your influence and for all you pour into everyone that watches and follows you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I love you much, dear. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Network Marketing Mindset Podcast with Deb Erickson. To learn more about Deb's business mindset coaching, classes, memberships, and leadership programs, visit us at icaninstitute.com. And for free weekly tips and techniques to help you develop and grow your business, join our Facebook community today at facebook.com/groups/network marketing mindset with Deb.